Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing my 2024 Book Choice Awards. I will say the total amount of stories that I consumed was 120 books total. That is the most I've ever read. So a lot, as I went through my list from last year, I did a lot of rereads because rereads keeps me out of reading slumps, so I'm always going to do a reread or a re-listen probably once or twice a month just to keep me where I need to be. I cannot get slumpy, y'all. I cannot do slumps anymore. So some of these are actually going to take more than one award because I did so many re-listens. That's just what ended up happening. First up is my most binge-worthy, Rock, Paper, Scissors by the Alice Feeney. I did a re-listen with one of my friends, Rena, and this is like the second or third time that we had Buddy read this and we just binge it. We have binged it every time. We get through it in a day and a half. And this also takes the award for the best plot twist. No one has succeeded in shocking me, thrilling me in as many plot twists as Alice Feeney, particularly this book. It's like plot twist whiplash, but in a good way. I loved it. Nothing has topped this. So ever since I read this and Daisy Darker, but this one especially, nothing has topped the feeling that she gave me, that she delivered in this. We have a husband and wife whose marriage is on the rocks. She basically sets it up. He has nothing to do with it. She sets it up where they have a weekend getaway in supposedly this Airbnb old renovated church in the Scottish Highlands. It so happens to be that that weekend is a massive blizzard that traps them in this place. If you definitely are in the need for atmosphere, this hits atmosphere. It's cold, it's a blizzard, it's a locked room mystery. It delivers. Next up is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride, one of my favorite books of all time. This takes the cake for 2 awards, which would be my fictional crush and best prose. So in The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi, this is actually her adult debut, by the way. Fantastic, beautifully done, so good. It's not a fantasy. It was mismarketed to be a fantasy, but it is written in a fantasy. The writing is written fantastically, so it's like fantasy writing. The prose, it's not just beautiful. It has a fairy tale, dark gothic feel to it, but there are so many layers that you have to peel back the layers over and over again through this writing. And you have to be on a certain level to really get it. You can't see the surface level. You have to be able to see the symbolism, the symbology. I see everything in symbology and archetypes, everything. And I see a lot and feel a lot in this. This is why it's so good. I have a couple fictional crushes, not in book form, in cinema form. But this guy, and we don't know his name, that's the other thing. He is just referred to as the bridegroom, which adds to the enticement and the appeal for me personally. There's a mystery to him, which makes him a silhouette. He is literally, I got a thing, but he is just a silhouette in my mind. Same thing with Jest from Heartless. He is he's just swoon. It's just like his character is just swoon worthy, but he's mysterious. You don't know their names. Mystery, silhouette. That's all I see. But our bridegroom in this, he suits her needs. I love the way that and it's told in this very seductive way. When the book first starts off, the writing is very enticing, seductive type of writing. She's basically interviewing for companions to live the type of lifestyle that she needs and she prefers. And he can do that. He's a storyteller. He he has that magical child in him, that magical child archetype that she needs to survive. She lives in that world. I relate to that. I live in that world. Like, he suits her. And even as things progress and how it ends, which obviously I can't say because of spoilers, there is mercy and forgiveness that he shows. There is I see you. That is why he is my fictional crush. So many things to him, and he's it. He's just it. Next up is Best YA. Race the Sands by Sarah Beth Durst. And this is a desert story. I don't get on with desert stories. I just don't. This is the only desert story that I have found that I absolutely love. Monster racers, monster riders, the monster trainers, the monsters are called Keyhawks, and of course we have a black lion Keyhawk on the front who is our main Keyhawk in this story. Incarnation is a big, the biggest religion aspect of this story, but it's not. It's like kind of more like a side plot. It doesn't take center stage. Woven into everything, but it's not like info dumped constantly. It's not shoved in your face constantly. It's mentioned, it's talked about, it's interwoven in, you know, obviously their beliefs and how you would become this. But things are not as they are taught or seen as they usually are. Please go read this book. It's high stakes as well, and you can feel the excitement that's in it. Especially we have two main characters, two female lead main characters that are, one is a mom as well, and to have a mom main character that is written in a way that just hits the mark. It's hard to write that, and she did. So I highly recommend this story. Next up is Best Nonfiction. My best nonfiction that I read was Energy Anatomy by Caroline Myss. Caroline Myss has become one of my teachers, and this was one of the most important books that I have ever read in my entire life. I'm in the middle, I'm on a spiritual journey, and it is so profound. Even if you are not ready to go on like a soul spiritual journey, because it's not for the faint of heart, you can just read this and it'll change it'll change your life. I have another one I'm going to recommend. I wrap up after this by her. I have so many to recommend now, but this one for last year is the one I would recommend for the best nonfiction. I highly suggest it. It's so good. Next is Most Surprising. This would be Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, but the BBC drama. I tried reading the actual book Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, and it was so boring. I could not get on with it. I did not get far before I just was like, I know. However, I came across this radio drama. It was 4 hours. And look at the cast. It has Christopher Lee, James McAvoy, who is, you know, our main character in this, and Benedict I always say Cumberbatch or Cumberbatch, whichever one is correct. It's whatever one I say for the day. I get it right sometimes. This was fantastic. Oh my God, y'all. I loved it. It was so entertaining. Really brought to life the actual story. It's on Libby. Please go listen to this. It will make your day. Everything is noise-based, so there's like all these types of breathing that you gotta figure out, and there's sound, like the sounds. It's so good. But it's set in London, and we basically have really an alternate like underworld London called Neverwhere, but it's like alternate London underneath the city. Main character, he comes across a girl who is from Neverwhere. She is running, she's on the run, and he kind of stumbles upon her, like basically saves her life in this moment, and she changes his world forever. And you know, he ends up in Neverwhere, and because he becomes invisible to everyone in his life, and he has to go to Neverwhere to kind of go on this mission with her to figure out why. And then he figures out, does he want to stay there? Does he want to go back to his old life? No one does radio dramas like the British. I mean, they are fantastic. Highly recommend. It's so good. Next up is Best Historical Fiction. For this, is definitely The Rose Code by Kate Quinn. World War II historical fiction. Kate Quinn, I highly recommend to check her out if you haven't yet. But this one, I've read all of her historical fiction books, I think, besides one, and the one left doesn't interest me. But this one is my favorite out of all of her works. We're in the perspectives of 3 women, and following them, they end up working for Bletchley Park as code breakers. I learned so much when I first read this. I learned about the Enigma machines. I learned about asylums, and back in the day, you know, what lobotomies, how lobotomies worked, and how a woman could just get put in a mental institution for literally anything. The fear of being a woman living in that time with that hanging over your head. So there's that. The World War II aspects of this from this perspective was so intriguing, so intriguing. And at the back of the book, I really give this to Kate Quinn. This woman does her research, y'all, and you can tell her writing is so good, and it's because she puts in the time and the effort. But in the back, in the physical book, this wasn't included in the audio that I listened to, but in the physical book, in the author's note, pictures of the Enigma machine, and she gives everything that is historically accurate that she included, and the people that her characters are based on. If you have not picked up The Rose Code yet and you are thinking about trying out Kate Quinn, I would suggest starting with this one, because in my opinion, I think this is the best out of all of her writing. Next is the funniest read. Hands down, the funniest that made me just cackle. I cackled so much. The first book in the Stephanie Plum series by Janet Ivanovich. We are following our main character, Stephanie, who becomes a bounty hunter working for her cousin Vinny. She's from New Jersey, so you're in the New Jersey, the Italian environment, accents, shenanigans ensue. It's literally, in this series, is literally like watching an episode of a TV show. Everything plays out like a show. Every episode is different, so every book is gonna be, you know, like it's like a different episode of this show. Stephanie is hilarious. I mean, the sarcasm is spot on, and if you appreciate sarcastic humor, this is 100% up your alley. Book 1, at least. Book 1 is the funniest out of them all, and it's the beginning. It's the very beginning of the journey. Next up is the best standalone. This one right here, The Light Between Worlds by Laura E. Wayworth. Weymouth, not Wayworth. The inside, beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. This doesn't get talked about enough, which is why I'm putting it for the best standalone. It is very Narnia-esque. So Portal, Narnia-esque fantasy is how I would describe this. It's a YA, World War II. It starts off in like a World War II setting, you know, with the kids are going in the bomb shelters every time the alarms, the sounds go off. Following 3 siblings, and the 3 siblings, while they're under like a bunker, they end up going into this portal world, the Woodlands. And we have a stag who is the guardian of the Woodlands. End up staying there for a period of time, and then they get bamfed back to their real world. Well, I'm not gonna say real world because the Woodlands is real, but the world they came from, that reality. One of our main characters, she doesn't cope with it. She does not belong here. She wants to go back to the Woodlands, and this is a story about that struggle and not being able to cope with it. Writing is beautiful. This is a beautifully written story about depression and longing and loss. So good. I highly recommend this. Next up is most heartwarming. I had a couple to choose from, but this one I think definitely takes the award for this. It would be Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe by Heather Weber. Now, this is kind of classified as magical realism, but I did this in my last wrap-up video. I would not call this magical realism because not enough. This is more of a contemporary story. The magical elements aren't enough to be magical realism, in my opinion. It just wasn't touched enough. It just wasn't, which is why I didn't give it a 5 stars, I don't read contemporary. I was shocked I loved this at all. But this is set in a small southern town. Our main character comes back home I believe it's called Wicklow, comes back home to Wicklow when her grandmother dies, and her grandmother was the owner of the Blackbird Cafe. And this small town is centered, literally centered around the Blackbird Cafe, because she has what's called Blackbird pie. Now, Blackbird pie is this magical pie that gives you visions of different things when you eat it. The small town vibes and feel of this story, and the people, the characters, how they take her in and kind of form a family unit by the end of it, it is just like, it is heartwarming, and it just jumped up and gave me a big old hug, okay? So I don't read cozy, but this was cozy and heartwarming, and I was like shocked. Next up is Most Devastating. I didn't read anything that like broke my heart and made me sob or weep. So for this one, I chose one that devastated me in my hopes. That would be Duma Key by Stephen King. When I first started this book, I thought it was going to be a 5 stars, and I was like, this is going to be a Stephen King that I'm giving 5 stars to. I'm going to be shocked. This is going to be the one. It was not the one. It started off 5 stars, and it was 5 stars for 80%, and then the last 20% went and took a turn. Dead end turn is the turn it took, because it was not a 5-star solid read anymore after that. I was like, I cannot believe 80% had my hopes up here. Why'd you do that? I don't know. All I know is I'm gonna put that for devastating. It takes the cake for this. Devastating, 20% was devastating. Next was The Best Ending. There is only one book that I have ever read so far that I was 100% satisfied with every single thing about the ending. And that is The 40 Elephants by Aaron Bledsoe. The 40 Elephants is a historical fiction that is based on Alice Diamond, who became the leader of the all-female gang, the 40 Elephants, back in the 1920s London. That's what it is. This ending, it wraps everything up. You're not left wanting for anything. You're not questioning anything. Everything was touched on. I was so satisfied, and the minute I was done, I was like, I've never been this satisfied with an ending ever. That was a new feeling. It was so incredible. I was like, okay, this is the one. This is the one. If you have answers for things, nothing's open-ended, but everything ended for each character in a way that made sense for that character. And it didn't feel rushed. And this is a standalone. And for the pacing, for the ending to not be rushed in any way, the pacing was spot on. Everything was spot on. Yes. Next up is Best Friendship. Absolute winner for this is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. Our 2 main characters, Sophie, and I forgot the other girl's name, but Sophie is the older one, and she is kind of like the witch of this small town, and our other main character just moves to the small town, and she can see that a lot of people don't really respond well to Sophie. There's like a reverence or a fear, but like Sophie doesn't have any friends, and Sophie wants to befriend her, and the friendship that they form is so amazing, because this book has the message of self-love and female empowerment, but in a healthy way. There's nothing toxic about this. The messages in this are positive, healthy, need to be told and read about, and this is the best friendship, like real friendship, positive, that I've read in a long time. Cackle's one of my favorite stories, and the best friendship in this is one of the biggest reasons why it's one of my favorite stories. Which leads me to the next award, which is favorite main character. My favorite would be Sophie. Out of everything that I've read, she became my new favorite character immediately, because one, I related to her, and also she has just her differences, personality, and the message that she brings out, and what she does for our other character in this. She just becomes, you just love her. You just end up really loving. She's enjoyable. So she ended up becoming my favorite main character. And last award is favorite side character. Hands down, saving the best for last here, Grandma Mazur from the Stephanie Plum Bounty Hunter series. Grandma Mazur, first off, I love their relationship. Their dynamic was hilarious. Grandma Mazur, not only is she down for anything and everything, she is so supportive. Literally, you could come to her. It doesn't matter what Stephanie would say when she went to her. Grandma Mazur found a way to spin that into a positive. She would just turn it all around and she would make it funny. Like, she knows how to be funny and supportive in the worst of times. But she's the character. It's like, you know, guess what I read in the paper today? Joey Macaroni got whacked outside the funeral parlor. Talk about a lucky break. He didn't have to go far. It's like, I just made that up on the fly. But that is exactly the type of character she is. She is the Italian old grandma. She's like the dinosaur that will never die. She is the best. She's one of my favorite characters of all time. And Gary, if you're watching this, it would be amazing if you would run an RPG, because I've always wanted to play an RPG where it's a bunch of old people, maybe old assassins, and they have like one last assignment. I want to roleplay Grandma Mazur for that campaign. All right, y'all, these are my awards for 2024. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of my awards, what you think of my recommendations. I would love to know your thoughts. If you like this video, give me that thumbs up, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on any of my upcoming bookish content. And as always, happy reading, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.